Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So I think what really is interesting is that, one, it's the first time I've ever spoken to a Melbourne crowd. So normally I'm telling a story about how this little company from Melbourne has, moved on to become a slightly bigger company around the world. So it's nice to be home. This is my hometown, but I haven't lived here for some time. So it was good to be back on the weekend and go to the footy and eat a pie and drink some Carlton Draft, even if it was mid-strength. But no. So I think, our story starts way, way back. So in fact, the two founders of 99Designs, and I'm not one of them. So I joined.
Sorry, that was
So
my mistake.
I was very lucky to join 99Designs. I think we were about 10 people, and I joined in September of '09. But I want to take you back further. So there's a business in Melbourne called SitePoint.com, which started in 1999. And that's in fact where we came from. So we spun out of there in February of 2008. But SitePoint's a really crazy story because Mark Harbottle, who's the co-founder based here in Melbourne, was working for Sausage Software. So has anyone else worked for Sausage here, or at least knows of them? They were kind of our .com darling of the late 90s, early 2000s. And so Mark was working for Sausage as a marketing manager. And he was selling the hot dog product, which was one of the first websites in a box. You kind of got a bunch of discs in the mail. And he was finding success through this little site called Webmaster Resources, and it was quite an effective channel for him. And so he was looking at this Webmaster Resources and thinking, wow, this site looks like shit. I think there's something to it though. And so he actually reached out to the founder of this business, a guy called Matt, who's our co-founder, and said, hey, I think you've got something, but I think I could help you. And I'm actually thinking about doing my own thing. So why don't you fly out to Australia and we spend some time together and see if we can't create a partnership? Matt's like, yeah, sure, I'm only 17. And Matt had in fact been running Webmaster Resources for over 3 years by this stage and started his first business at 13, was driving a BMW at 15, and as he says, earning more money than his parents at that point. And so Matt and his mum flew out to Melbourne to meet with this Mark Harbottle character, and the two of them created this unlikely alliance. And so our history is kind of pretty interesting in that we've always had one co-founder in Vancouver who's operated out of his bedroom, and not a literal bedroom, his actual bedroom, and that bedroom's got bigger and bigger. And then we've had Mark based here in Melbourne, and he's the one who's built the development team and essentially built the products from here in Melbourne. And so that ethos is still something that we carry today. So 99Designs, we build everything here in Melbourne as well, and now we sell it around the world. So back to the SitePoint story. So SitePoint was a site. Anyone been to SitePoint? Yeah, so great place to learn about anything, but predominantly development and design. Had a big audience, was monetizing it through ads. Ad market disappeared in 2001. The guys were like, what do we do? They started selling real books. So in fact, they became a publisher and they distribute those books through Amazon and O'Reilly. Basically how-to, somewhere between a university textbook and something for dummies. Right, so it was kind of like the professional's guide to learning a new skill, but you didn't want to go back to school to do it. And so, a lot of them were about design or new languages, etc. Okay? Yeah. And so part of the community that they built was two very active forums. So there was a designer forum and a developer forum. And so it was in the designer forum that in fact our business started. So the designers were playing a game called Photoshop Tennis, where for fun, one designer would create a fictional brief and other designers would then submit designs to it. And then they'd basically have an informal vote, right? And so this was just like an ongoing activity that would happen in the forum thread. And then one day, one of the designers, lucky for us, said, hey, I promised a logo for a website customer. I don't really like doing logos. You guys seem to love doing them for fun. How about you do it to my brief? Submit them to me, and if I pick one of you, I'll pay you. The designer's like, yeah, we do it for fun, we'll do it for money. And so essentially that's how our business model started. So our business model was this very organic experience where initially it was designer to designer. using it as a way to source work from each other. So taking advantage of different skill sets. I don't like doing print, I don't like doing web, I don't like doing logos, etc. Then the developers heard about it, and so they started to pile in, because for them they're like, wow, this is a really cool way to get design. And then we had a very, very messy forum. And so that was really the case. And then from there, we built a minimum viable product, which was around, first step was charge people to list and see if in fact there was a business at all, because there was one assumption that maybe if we just charged people it would go away, and it didn't go away, it continued to build. And then from there we had this value proposition that we could test, and we started to learn about what it is that designers needed and what customers needed. And so a minimum viable product was built, and then 99Designs was spun out in February of 2008. So it was spun out of SitePoint. It had two developers, Lachlan and Paul. And so we basically were incubated within another business, but it was like having a benevolent parent. So the first iteration was we didn't have to pay any rent, we didn't have to pay for broadband, but we had to, the two salaries could be covered. And Mark was kind of like, management was provided for free. And then we eventually built up from there to the point where, I joined in September of 2009. We already had Jason in place, sitting out the front here. He was sort of our general manager at the time. And so my remit, along with the business, was like, cool, how do we continue to facilitate our growth? And so at this point, it had all been done through cash flow. So we, kind of had good growth month on month, all based on word of mouth. And so we're like, cool, let's essentially see if we can't facilitate an exponential jump in that. And our strategy around that was to set up an office in North America. So we'd already had one guy who was on the ground operating from his bedroom over there. And then I moved across in February of 2010.